Welcome back to Freedom Algo. Here is our daily price action lesson for October 17th, 2024. So let's get into it. This is a very mixed trading day. You can kind of see here all these trend lines that I had, and there's a reason that I left these all on here to kind of show you how I was looking at things. Now, a few of them moved around as always because they just like to do that. We go over to the daily chart real quick. What you can actually see on the daily chart is this here, where we came up and we ended up making this high and then came down. So there was an overnight high on the data that we then reversed from. And you can see that up here, that was at 6:10 in the morning. So it was 20 minutes before the open. There was a lower high there. And then, eventually when we opened, it pretty much just rocketed down. And we've pretty much been mostly sideways with a bearish bias, I would say here. However, it did break out and start to kind of give us more of a bullish bias over here overall on the longer term, but it's a very mixed trading day. So I'm going to zoom in and go over what I saw. So when I first came in this morning around 5 something, I don't know, I think it was, let's see, it was somewhere like right over here. I think I got here right around 5:30, right when the data was releasing. So the way I was looking at it was we had a spike and a channel. And that's how I had it drawn at the time. So I had this low, this low, this low, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit more just to make this make a little bit more sense to you. So basically, you had this big spike channel, and right here was our first close outside of this channel because you had one, two, three touches there on the low side, multiple touches on the high side. So this was a pretty intact channel. But then we had this reversal, not reversal. We had this bearish bar, and then there was kind of a rejection candle here. This was sort of a support reject. It was basically a rejection of the bearish move. So it's higher low than this. This low was at 59.1075. This low is at 59.1150. And so I marked this as a possible long just because it's such a bullish bar off the 21 EMA. You have an uptrend. It's the first break below, so you're expecting a test of a new high. Now, of course, you could make another leg down and get a second entry long, but you're not always going to get that. And the reason I liked this one was the way I looked at this. I kind of looked at this over here as sort of like a double bottom, even though it's not technically. And so it's kind of a first entry, second entry short failure. So you can kind of see this as a failed second entry short if you count these as sort of a double bottom. And then it's also just you're expecting us to go up and test the high after a break, something this bullish. So it was, again, it's not a perfect setup, so that's why it's a green, not a second entry long. But then you actually do get a second entry long here that traps everybody. So the way that I like this one is on the engulfing bar. And so what you do is I'll just put a line here to show. So basically, as this was forming, you would have your buy stop order right there. So you have this pullback first entry to there, and then it starts to pull back. It ticks down one tick lower and traps all the shorts. So you put a buy stop one tick above this bar, and you just wait. And the idea is that if it comes up and fills you, it's probably going to push up to a new high, which is exactly what it did. And that was a nice, easy, and safe trade. So I like that one. The other thing here was that at the time, you had to consider that it's possible that there was maybe a wider channel in play. It could have even been something like this because this still fits. So if you had something drawn, something like this, it's possible that there was a spike in channel and this was just a wider channel. So you had to consider that possibility was there, especially with the support of the EMA. So I liked that one. Then it came up. This is just again, you don't want to just be picking tops and bottoms in these types of trends. The reason I like this one is just because if this is the case that this channel was intact and this is a close outside, then basically this is kind of like two legs to a new high. And then you have this here. You could also count from here as it's not really a second entry short, but you're far away from the EMA. It's a push to a new high, a new extreme. And so it's not a perfect setup, but it could be the case that, this is where if you're looking for a short, that's probably the place to do it. We're so extended there. So not a great setup. You're picking a top there, but I marked it because if you had a more bearish candle than this, it might have been the kind of place where you would take the risk, maybe on a small size. All right, anyway, the better entry is the lower high, which you get over here. And this lower high is a perfect setup because you basically have pull back to here. This is technically a lower high, so you could take that trade, but at this point, you're not exactly sure if it's going to go down that far because you do have a trend channel working down that you haven't really confirmed yet. But I like this one on waiting here to see what we're going to get. We were getting towards the open, and the open opens here and then traps everybody in this perfect short. So what you get is a first entry, second entry long that traps everybody. So this one, you pretty much want to wait for this one to close. You don't necessarily want to enter this on the engulfing bar because there's so much stem on the bottom of that. But you get a first entry, second entry, and you could just go short right there, and that's a nice easy trade. It's a failed second entry long, and it's also a lower high from this over here. So I like that one. And then I drew a few different options for this trend channel down. So it was a possible trend channel that was maybe a bigger one. There was also, after this one played out, I drew this kind of tighter channel from this high going down. And then I had this really tight channel here. And so what I like here is you could see this as a new high now because it's a first entry, second entry that is higher than that high over there. So what I counted from here, a first entry, second entry long that fails. And it's a pretty good setup there. It's below the EMA. You're rejecting below the EMA now. You've kind of got this down channel working in your favor. And we have this huge gap below us. So you're kind of expecting that you're going to go down probably towards this gap. We're just really extended there. So I like that trade. The only reason it's green is because it was kind of sideways. So, it's a little bit sideways. It's a little congested. It's not perfect, but it is a double top there that rejects. So I do like that one. It then gives you this nice move. You definitely get a runner on that. And then you run down and eventually you run all the way down. You get a low and a close outside all at once right here. So this short term height channel has now played out because you got the new low and a close all at once. And then you get a higher low right here. And you're pretty far away from the EMA at the time. You could also look at this sort of as a double top. And you could probably argue that there's a second entry higher low there on a long side. But it's really just a higher low after the trend channel played out far away from the EMA. So if you risk that, it's fine. Not the perfect setup just because of how bearish this is. And you don't know for sure if this wider channel is in play and you haven't come back to it. Now, when you do come up to this one here, this is the safer trade. You get your first entry, second entry short right off of this channel, confirming it, and you have your 1, 2, third attempt on this channel. So I saw that as a really nice and safe second entry short. It ends up not giving you a new low on this. It just breaks above. So at this point, you have to consider, okay, the short-term channel played out. This channel is now done. So you're still thinking that it might make a new low from this wider channel, but we had this other wide channel in play that I had drawn already. And so then you end up coming up, and what you get here is a short-term up channel that closes outside, gives you a new high and a really bearish bar. And so that's a nice short as well. You could also see that as, if you count from this low, you could see it as a first entry, second entry short. But really what this is just a up channel that broke and played out and gave you a new high with a really bearish bar and confirm that trend channel. Now this trend channel ends up failing. It ends up coming down and breaking out right after that. But you don't know that that's going to happen at the time, and you're still looking for it to come down here, which it ended up not doing. Now that was kind of the theme of today. A lot of these trend channels failed and didn't necessarily give you the attempt. So you get a lot of these little channels working that break and they don't actually give you the attempt at a new high or low. So you did have to be careful. The short-term channels, most of them played out, but a lot of these wider channels didn't necessarily play out exactly as you'd expect. So you did have to be careful, and that's why I categorize this as more of a mixed trading style day. So then you kind of have this like little weak channel working up. This one was tempting just because of how bearish it looked far away from the EMA, but there really is no setup there. You could argue that there's sort of a double bottom here and a first entry, hidden second entry short, but I don't like it because you're still making higher highs and higher lows all through here. So I didn't like that. I didn't want to risk shorting it, even if it is going to ride you down. And it would have worked, but just wasn't worth it for me. So if anybody took this trade right here on this candle, I went back and forth on whether or not to mark it. I just didn't think that it was a very great setup. I mean, it is off of the top of the trend. So there is some reasons to like it, but there wasn't enough in it for me. So anyway, it goes down, and there is a first entry pullback, second entry long here with a really bullish candle. But the thing is here, you were still expecting a new low from down here, and you weren't hadn't gotten it yet, and you're still within this trend channel. So I just didn't think it was worth it, because you could end up just entering, it could tick up and just completely reverse and stay within this channel. It's not really a break outside of this channel. So I just didn't like taking a trade there, even though that one worked as well. So what I ended up seeing this though as is the pullback first entry, pullback second entry failure. So I actually did take this as sort of a failed trap. And you can see the low of this candle is 59.0350. This one goes down to 59.02. So you end up with just enough room, basically, to scalp out of this one. So if you took this trade here, let me just draw that. You can see there's exactly 6 ticks there. So you enter in one tick below this bar, and it ticks right through and fills you on 4 ticks. So you only get a scalp there. Unfortunately, I was really thinking that this was going to shove down to a new low, but you end up not getting it. What you do end up getting is a first entry, second entry short, but this is not a good signal bar, so you can't take it, even though it did work. If this was a more bearish bar on your chart, then I would have said take that trade, because basically that's what I wanted to take a short here. After this one went there, and then we got this, and it started to line up here, I thought it was going to close more bearish, and I was going to enter another short here as a second entry short, but it ended up not working out because the candle was just a little too neutral, too much of a doji style, a little bit, not bullish. It closed basically right in the middle, but kind of a doji. So then I drew this channel working down. Still expecting a new low over here. So let's mark that real quick. You end up getting it over here. So I was still expecting a test of the low there. And so now we had this channel in play. Not confirmed yet, because you just have this top and then this touch. But it started to come down. You end up not really getting a setup here, unfortunately. It does tap here, and it fits pretty nicely there. But you don't really get a setup here. It kind of just comes up and gives you a first entry short, and it just reverses. There's not really a good higher low setup. There's just not really anything there. There's a first entry, second entry long, but it's below the EMA. It's all somewhat bearish bars. This one is not even that bullish. So there's just no setup here, unfortunately. It just kind of takes off into this up channel that starts working. Another one of these grindy up channels. And if I zoom out, you'll see that was kind of the theme of the day. You had these little grindy up channels and then bearish moves down. So there's a lot of just rug pulls on people all day. A lot of traps today. So let's actually, and we'll go over some of the traps that come up here soon. So you kind of had this up channel working, and then it just turns into this down channel, breaks below. You don't really get anything here. Unfortunately, what happens is you break out of this up channel to the downside. You get this kind of bullish looking, relatively bullish candle, but it turns into this. You're not going to just take a random long there. There's really no setup. It's just a first entry. So then you get a first entry, second entry short. Again, I really wanted to short this here because I was going to see this as an attempt to go higher for this channel that fails and is probably going to go lower again, because we're still looking for some of these lows. We did make the new low down there, but now we had this down channel that broke. So it's like, okay, we're probably going to get a new low from this. So I was looking at that. Unfortunately, you just get a terrible candle here. It's kind of bullish. Kind of a doji. It's above the EMA. I really wanted this one to close like near the EMA or below it or something. Give me a really, really bearish bar, and I would have went short, but you just didn't get it. So it was better not to take the setup here. And so then you have this second leg down. I don't know. I didn't measure these, but it's probably something like this. Basically 2 legs. It's not quite, but similar idea. This leg is just a little bit too big because of that wick. But anyway, you do get this. You see this channel breaks and it plays out to make the new low here. But then this is kind of a tight channel too that I just marked. Now this one is here. This is one of the traps I was talking about. So basically what you had here was, and this one, again, this is advanced. So you really gotta be careful with this kind of stuff. But I'm going to show you kind of how I saw this play out. So there was a channel working down, and you're expecting a new low on this channel here. it's just looking like it's pretty weak. You're not really expecting this high from this channel here. There's just this channel working down. I'm just thinking, all right, we're probably gonna get a new low. We had this channel, so I'm really bearish at this point. We're getting closer to the yesterday's close, and what we end up with is this, and then this attempt up that looks like it's going to be a higher low from here, and it traps all of these longs. So this is an engulfing bar short for me. Basically, it's just a trap. Goes one tick higher and immediately reverses. So you basically enter it like this. You kind of have your order sitting right there, and it just goes down and immediately fills you, and you get out of the trade. Really just a quick one to a new low. That's really all that was. It was just a quick little short to a new low. It's kind of like, if you look here, it's kind of a first entry, second entry short that gives you sort of a lower high here that then reverses down to the new low. That's kind of how I saw this. I saw it as like almost like a continuation on this second entry short. Like the second entry short is going to actually play out here. That's how I saw this. It's also a first entry long failure. So you could see it like that. You could also see it if you counted from here and counted this all as one swing. It was another attempt at this higher low that fails. So that one is more advanced and it's green. It's not a perfect setup, but it was decent. Then I had this upper channel that I had drawn off of this close here. And what you get here is you have this high working. So this is kind of a first entry, second entry long that comes up to this high. And you're not taking this trade from down here, but that is a setup there. And there's a channel. This channel breaks. You then get a first entry, second entry long that basically just fails. And this is so it's a failure below this bar right here, below the green bar, pretty much. But it's also, the failure pretty much triggers at the same spot as this second entry short. It's a little sideways, first entry, second entry short, and this is an inside bar. But the reason I like it is it's like a failed second entry long and a second entry short at the same time. So just a quick scalp move. Then you have the off the top of the trend line here. So then from here, you end up with another one of these traps that looks just like this one over here. So basically what you get is this new low to double bottom, and you've got a first entry short. Then it then opens, so it comes up here. You get this new candle so this one pulls back to here, opens, goes one tick higher and immediately fails. So after this one closes, it's a second entry short. It's also a trap here. Just, it's probably trapping the longs again. Similar repeat pattern. People thought they were catching a higher low off of a double bottom, but they end up getting trapped. So it's sometimes risky to enter engulfing setups like this with the stem, and you're close to the low. That's why this is green. But I liked it just because I was expecting and thinking about tapping these lows, and you got room to those lows, and you end up getting it. So it ends up being a nice little short. This is a little tight down channel where you basically you break out of it, come out, close outside a new low all at once. So if you took this here, there's a possibility that this is going to go up to there. And you could kind of, even if you ignore this little like pullback high, pullback second entry long, you could see this as a first entry long, second entry long that failed and then reversed and trapped people that were trying to short. You could see it like that. You could also see this all as a bigger swing, pullback first entry, pullback second entry long like that, if you just kind of think of this as all just part of the move. So there's a few reasons to like that one. Again, it's not perfect. Far away from the EMA. It looks like rejection from these lows. It then comes up, and you get a close outside of this up channel and a really bearish bar all at once. And so you could just short right there. It's not, there's no lower high, which would have been better. But it's also, if you kind of look at this, it's sort of a hidden second entry short, more advanced. All right. Then it turns into this sort of up channel working. You don't really get a setup up here, unfortunately. You just kind of have this up channel working. There's not much really here. I don't really see anything that I like. There's not really a short there. There's technically a lower high here, but that's right onto the channel. So the only trade that I really saw after this was a pullback first entry long, pullback second entry long failure. It's kind of a doji, not perfect, but this below this bar is a failed second entry long. You end up getting stuck sideways for a second before it fills you, unless you got filled on this low, which you might have, but it might have just, you might have gotten filled on one of these lows if you were going for 4 ticks. If you were going for more, you'd have to wait and you would be sitting sideways, but it ends up working out as a failed second entry
Connection
long. And then you've got this channel breaks, gives you this up channel, but you don't really get anything here. It looks like it makes a new high, reverses, but there's not really any setups here. We're just kind of consolidating sideways. Not any really great structure at this point. It looks like it's pretty much it for me. So I just wanted to kind of show you what I saw today. Hopefully the rest of your trading day goes well if you trade the afternoon session. But right now it's kind of that lunch hour time for the East Coast and the Central. And it's just really consolidates this time of day. And, I don't trade the end of the day. But hopefully everybody has an awesome day, and I'll see you tomorrow.